Oi! Smooth Jimmy. He's got his lock in the week and his cigar. It's UFC Vegas 32 time. He's ready. I'm ready. That means it's time for another episode of Balls Deep Breakdown, the first of the new week here. This time we are going into a very, very interesting matchup where somebody is going to wind up looking at the lights wondering what the fuck just happened. Adrien Yanez, Randy Costa, UFC Vegas 32. I am so fired up for this one. It is going to be such a banger. Can't wait to go balls deep into all the stats for this particular matchup. But first, before we do, I want to take all your attention and put it over to the show that I do on Sunday night with my man DFS by the Numbers. It is called Stat Diggers. The show has been taken off like crazy. I'd like to thank everybody that's been watching Stat Diggers, that's been commenting. We've been getting so much good positive feedback in the comment section on YouTube, on Twitter. A lot of people are watching. We love doing the show. It's a lot of hard work, but I'd like to thank all of you that have been watching. If you have not seen the Stat Diggers show yet, go check it out over on Pub Sports Radio. We go balls deep into the stats for the entire UFC Vegas 32 card. We went almost 3 hours this week breaking down all 13 fights. And I'd just like to thank everybody that's watching that show. The link is not in the description of this video yet, but it will be after I'm done doing this video tonight. So I'll get that in there for you guys into the description. But the link to the matchup template seen here on the screen is in the description. Feel free to download that. I got all 13 matchups included in the tabs on the bottom here. So if you're thinking of betting on any particular fight and you want to look at all the stats for that fight before you make any decisions, download it for free and use it to help make your gambling decisions. But and then let's see who's in the chat with us today, because we've got a couple of live viewers hanging out with me here before Clint goes live on the Die Hard MMA podcast on Pub Sports Radio. I promise I'll be done before Clint goes live. Not going to make you guys choose between me and him, because I will not win that one. We have got Headley one in the room. Line is starting to move. Yanez at minus 200 now, probably around minus 225 to minus 250 by fight time. Violence parlay, Yanez, Puna, Dawkins. Fight does not go to decision, probably plus money. Unfortunately, the Dawkins Abdurakhimov fight has been postponed for at least 1 week. It is supposed to be on the next card on the 31st. I guess there was somebody in somebody's corner who had COVID, so it's being postponed for 1 week. If you've already got that line on your book, hopefully they just postpone it a week and don't make you get a new one. But yeah, that's unfortunate. We just lost one of the best fights on this card. I guess we're down to 12. But we will get to see the Dawkins Abdurakhimov matchup next weekend. Dave Crackk joining us saying noise. Yeah, and I agree. That is a nice little parlay, and hopefully the fight doesn't go to decision for the Dawkins Abdurakhimov, stays in there. We got my man OKK up here. Sup, G? What is up? Thanks for hanging out with us. And then my guy Dan Goldstein in the room. Hey, we go Uncle Weezy working harder than Francis Ngannou in a salt mine for us. Man, I saw some of those pictures of him shoveling sand in those sand mines in Cameroon. No wonder that dude is so strong. What a killer he is. And then we got my man, DFS by the Numbers, the man who brought me along for the ride on Stat Diggers, the hottest new show in the MMA space. Thank you for hanging out with us, my man. I can't wait to go balls deep into all the stats for this matchup. So let's get started on that. And let's start, like we always do, with the tail of the tape. Both of these guys, young men, 27 years old. Randy Costa, 2 inches taller at 5'9". Yanez, 5'7". Randy Costa will have a 3-inch reach advantage here. 73-inch reach opposed to 70 for Yanez. Yanez is an orthodox fighter, while Costa constantly switches stances, and he is equally effective out of both stances. Excuse me. Randy Costa, training out of Stanford MMA right now, but he did start up where he's from in Massachusetts over at Lausanne MMA. So if you watch the regional scene footage of Randy, and it only takes about a minute to watch all of it because he knocks everybody the fuck out in the first round. But Yeah, you'll see that Joe Lozon was in his corner. Now he's training also at Sanford MMA. So, even though we've seen him be very explosive and finish fights very quickly, we could potentially see a shot here where we've got Costa making some improvements. He's only 27 years old, just like Yanez is. And even though both of these guys have shown a lot of promise thus far, they're still very young and they're still going to be improving their MMA game. So let's get into the pro experience here so that we can take a look and see how long both of these guys have been fighting. Randy Costa, 7 professional fights, and I got to watch all of those in less than about a half an hour today, and it was beautiful. Yanez, 16 pro fights. We see that Yanez is 13-3. Randy Costa, 6-1. We got 145.5 minutes of cage time for Adrien Yanez, and a hilarious 12 minutes of cage time for Randy Costa. In 7 fights, this guy has only spent 12 minutes in the cage for an average fight time of 1.71 minutes. Like I say, if you like knockouts, if you like seeing dudes get slept, go watch all the Randy Costa tape. It won't take long. And then when you see how long these guys have been fighting, only 3 years for Randy Costa. So we know he's 27 years old, started at the age of 24, while Adrien Yanez has had 16 pro fights in his 7.5-year career. Average fight time, 9.09 years. So yeah, Yanez fighting about twice a year for 7 years now. And these guys each have 3 UFC fights. Yanez 3-0, Costa 2-1. Cage time 9.13 minutes in Costa's UFC experience. So you see that he's growing up a little bit as a fighter, while now his fights are taking 3 minutes instead of just 55 seconds. And then we got Yanez with an average fight time, or the total cage time, at 13.87 minutes. We got 4.62 minutes average fight time for Yanez. So he is getting the job done quickly as well. So yeah, this is just screaming violence when you see the UFC experience for both of these guys. The average fight time for both of them less than a round. And we'll probably see some very unsurprising numbers in these finish stats. Yeah, and it turns out Randy Costa's finished all of his wins by knockout. And it turns out that Adrien Yanez has finished 77% of his pro wins by knockout. So, these guys are both very efficient finishers. While Yanez in his 3 losses has never been finished, but in Randy Costa's 1 loss, he has been submitted. That was by Brandon Davis in the UFC. Let's see what's going on in the chat here, because I see another guy that is one of the best analysts out there on YouTube, Z's MMA, my guy. Thanks for hanging out with us. This one is absolutely going to be such a banger. The under is such a great bet in this one. The fight doesn't go to decision. Looks like it's going to cash pretty easily unless both of these guys have made major changes to the way that they fight. Thanks for hanging out, Z's. We got OKK, O'Malley by KO, Gamrot, Yanez, Maverick, Kyler Phillips parlay for 3K return. I'm praying. I'm going to be praying right there with you, because you already got the O'Malley by KO and you got the Gamrot locked in. And then you need 3 more, and they are all big favorites this week. Yanez, Maverick, Kyler Phillips, $3,000. Man, I'm going to be rooting for you, OKK. Well done. And we got Jack Attack MMA in the room. Big Uncle Weezy, Big Jack Attack. Thanks for hanging out. And OKK laughing my ass off. You won't be laughing with that one cashes. You will be smiling and going to the window, collecting your cash and telling them, my Uncle Weezy said, give me my fucking money because I cashed that parlay. And let's cash some bets on this fight and get into the striking statistics, which are very, very impressive for these guys. So, top left of your screen right here, we're going to look at the UFC striking and grappling statistics for both of these guys. Now, Adrien Yanez in his 3 UFC fights, 4.69 strikes landed out of 10.6 offered for a 44% striking accuracy. We got Randy Costa landing 7.88 per minute out of 16.53 offered for a 47% striking accuracy. Both of these guys have they're basically outliers in terms of their knockdowns per total significant strikes landed at 6.15% for Adrien Yanez, where he's averaging 4.33 knockdowns per 15 minutes. And Randy Costa, with that crazy power, 4.17% knockdowns per total significant strikes landed at 4.93 knockdowns per 15 minutes. So both of these guys showing, over 44% striking accuracy. Both of these guys are throwing over 10 strikes per minute. Both of these guys landing well over 4 strikes a minute. And for Costa, it's 7.88 out of 16.53. So not only are we seeing tons of volume out of both of these guys, we're seeing tons of power out of both of these guys. And, everything that's leading me to believe that this is going to be a fight that does not go to decision is really clearly spilled out in the numbers, where Randy Costa is such a killer be killed fighter that unless he's made major changes to the way that he fights, and that certainly is a possibility now that he has transferred from Lausanne MMA in Massachusetts down to South Florida, training with Henry Hooft over at Sanford, potentially we could see him coming out a little more calm. And that's the only thing that would worry me about a violence bet on this fight. But, we see pretty good defensive numbers out of both of these guys. And when we look at the significant strike differences, we see how effective both of these dudes have been on the feet, because Yanez landing 4.69 significant strikes per minute, only absorbing 2.31. So that's an over 2-to-1 ratio of him outlanding his opponents, and a plus 2.38 significant strike difference. And for Costa, it's just as impressive at 2.62 significant strike difference, and a ratio of about 1.3 to 1 that he's outstriking his opponents. And massive volume in Costa fights too, which is another thing that's going to lead you to believe that it's probably going to be a banger that ends inside the distance, is that Randy Costa is throwing 16.53 strikes per minute in the time that he's been in the cage. And his opponents have been very active as well at 12.59 significant strikes attempted. So, Randy Costa does seem to drag whatever opponent he draws into just a knockdown, drag out brawl, which is exactly the kind of fight you want to see when your fight is on the fight doesn't go to, or when your money's on the fight doesn't go to decision. And so if we look at the grappling stats here, we see that, something that really isn't surprising at all, if we see that both of these guys are so good with their hands and so effective with their striking. Neither one of these guys has even attempted a takedown in their 6 combined UFC fights. And because they haven't attempted one, they haven't gotten one either. Adrien Yanez, only less than 1% control time in his UFC career, and his opponents are only controlling him a little under 7% of the time. So that means about 92% of the time that Adrien Yanez is in the cage, the fight's taking place right in the center of the cage, where both guys are at boxing range, and both guys, well, at least Adrien Yanez is very comfortable. His opponents haven't been. And it's the same thing really here for Costa, but we just do see higher numbers of control time at 8.39% for Randy Costa and 21.53% against for Randy Costa. Both of these guys have shown 100% takedown defense, while Costa has only defended 1 takedown. Adrien Yanez has defended 5 in 3 fights. So yeah, both of these guys look like they're not going to attempt to wrestle, although we could certainly see one of these guys decide, I don't like how this is going on in the fight. Maybe they do try to take it to the ground, but the numbers have shown us that in 6 combined fights between these two gentlemen, neither one of them has even tried a takedown. And when I've looked at the regional scene footage on both of these guys, I haven't seen Randy Costa. I think I've seen Randy Costa get 2 takedowns, maybe 1. I think he got a ground and pound finish in one of his regional scene wins. I think it was against Razor Rob Fuller. Yeah, that Randy Costa win against Razor Rob Fuller, their win KO TKO. That was a ground and pound finish, and he took his opponent down there. So Randy Costa has used a takedown before on the regional scene, and he has finished a fight via ground and pound. And Adrien Yanez has finished fights by submission on the regional scene. I've seen him get a triangle choke win. So both of these guys have some skills on the ground. It just kind of looks like neither one of them has any desire to get it there. But, because both of these guys are so dangerous on the feet, we have to be prepared for the scenario that one of these guys will attempt to go to the wrestling. And it would be a very interesting little wrinkle in this fight if that did happen, because we haven't seen much of these guys in terms of having fights take place on the mat and really get to see their grappling thus far in the UFC. So before we get to the strength of schedule in the last 5, let's see what the chat is up to here. All right, and we got wait a second, I gotta go even higher here. So yes, we got he might hit that. Hope he gets it. Yeah, I think he might get that one. You know, Yanez is a pretty big favorite, and the other two, I mean, the Daukaus Abdurakhimov fight doesn't go to decision. It's one of my favorite bets of the week, and he already got a couple of them good in there too. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I hope he hits that. I hope OKK hits that parlay. We got Dan. These guys both fight like their opponents made unwanted indiscretions toward their mothers. Yanez is so accurate and fast. Yeah, man, they're so much fun to watch. And Sosa's in the room. Better late than never. Saying, "What's up, Jack?" I know that these guys are best friends, Jack and Sosa. And Dan saying, "Come on, not at Uncle Weezy's house too." But Sosa will fight wherever the fight shows up for him. So, sup, Dan? And I'm Uncle Weezy's crime partner, and that's correct, man. Me and Sosa hanging out quite a bit in DFS by the numbers Patreon there. And we got sup, brother, from Dan Goldstein. The line on the under 1.5 is moving fast and for a very good reason. Might have to hop on soon. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, you know. If you wait for all the props to come out on all the books, a lot of times you're going to miss a lot of that early line movement. And one of the great things that DFS by the numbers has been doing in his betting breakdowns is that, you know, he gets ahead of the curve. That's why we do stat diggers on Sunday, to try to get as much information out there as possible to the people that want to beat that line movement. And if you want to beat the line movement, man, the early bird gets the worm. That's why we do stat diggers on Sunday night. Get all those numbers out there for you guys to analyze, so that when we go balls deep a little bit later on in the week, you've already got a lean on which way you're looking. And then we can kind of pick the best spots on the card for violence bets. Fight goes to decision, looking for those sub and KO props, looking for the over-unders, looking for any ways to make money off of these fights. And yeah, DFS by the numbers right on, and that sometimes you got to jump on these things a little bit early if you want to get the best lines. And if you do beat that line movement and then you wind up getting a little bit of cold feet, you can always hedge out at the end. So that's a good thing. Dan Goldstein saying, if it goes to the ground, Yanez has a black belt in BJJ and a couple subs too, but they were opportunists, I think. Yeah, I mean, I know the wrestler that he submitted early in his career, you know, looked like he had really bad striking, you know, and he just got caught up in that triangle. It was pretty easy for him to get that, you know, and you're fighting lower guys on the regional scene, but we'll really get into the records of all these guys that both of these guys have fought, so that we can get an idea of who's got the best wins, you know, who's seen better competition coming into this fight. Jack Attack saying, at Mystic Sosa, just in time for the people's main event. You casual. I've been calling it the people's main event, but a lot of times my man DFS by the numbers, Brady, uses that term sarcastically. Like we could also call Hannah Goldie versus Diane Belbita the people's main event and do it sarcastically. But this really is the true people's main event, or one of them on this card, because there could be like 4 people's main events on this card. Such a good card from top to bottom. So many great, interesting stylistic matchups on this fight. And one thing that we covered on Stat Diggers last night is how many dudes have ridiculous power that are fighting on this card. And we were talking about a couple of them right here with Yanez and Costa. And my man Robbie, banger incoming, and there is no question about it, dude. This is definitely going to be a banger. Headley one. Both guys are so likable. Hate that one of them will get knocked out. Yeah, man, they are both likable. They're both so fun to watch. They both knock out their opponents. So it's kind of a shame that they have to see each other. But I think at the same time, these are the kind of fights that the UFC needs to make, because these are the kind of fights that get people like me talking. It gets people like you out there that are MMA fans watching shows like this to really kind of get into the meat and potatoes of such an interesting stylistic matchup with guys having this much power going head to head, man. This is going to be such a great fight. Jack Attack. Daukaus Abdurakhimov has been rescheduled for the 31st. Yes, sir, it has. Somebody got COVID. I don't know in whose corner, but hopefully that one gets right out back on the 31st card, and we get to see that fight as soon as possible, because it is going to be a banger. My man Wayne Rhea in the room with us. Let's go, baby. And DFS by the numbers saying Dan is hilarious. He's hanging out with us all the time on the Balls Deep breakdowns, on Brady's live streams, on Stat Diggers. always coming with the great stuff. We got Jack Attack saying, LOL, man, I love to make you guys laugh. And we got OKK. Do you think Yanez's accuracy is a major factor? Well, the striking accuracy is 44.22%. There's no, that's not horrible. And you know, you don't have to be shit. You can have 20% accuracy. If you're knocking people down on 6% of your significant strikes landed, you don't have to land a whole lot of strikes. So both of these guys, I wouldn't say accuracy is really a problem for either of them. And even if Costa's percentage was lower, he's throwing 16.53 significant strikes per minute. So you don't even have to be that accurate when you're throwing that much anyway. So I wouldn't say either of these guys' accuracy is a problem. But what I do like seeing about Costa's striking is the fact that he can hit you from so far away. He kicks with both legs. He will throw knees, and he's got power in both hands. And he's constantly switching stances, which is something that's very difficult to deal with, especially when, you know, it's interesting when you see some guys switch stances and you know that they're more likely to kick with one leg than the other. But with Costa, you just don't know. He'll kick you with the right leg, and he's got knockouts with the left leg as well. So he's equally dangerous out of both stances. So both Costa and Yanez have so much power and so much variety in their striking, even though Yanez is a better pure boxer, while Costa is a little bit more what I would call a kickboxer. But they're both so powerful that striking accuracy isn't a problem. And the numbers, if you look at the numbers as well, 44.22%, 47.68%, nothing wrong with those striking accuracy numbers. And the striking defense for both of them is above 55%, so that's very good as well. Let's see. And yeah, and OKK saying, you know, because they pretty much said they're going to stand and bang. And yeah, that was what Randy Costa is saying. And I think that's another reason that so many eyes are going to be on this fight. You probably won't have to watch it for long. It's such a good fight. Brady, I don't have a visual on you, but that sweater be highlighter green or purple today. Dude, yeah, we're working on my man Brady's sweater game. It's always good. But, you know, my personal, you know, philosophy is that we can always get better. And I know that Brady feels the same way about that. You know, we're going to see some good stuff from him coming up, I'm sure. And we got Dr. Peppers and Reese's Pieces. Bad taste out of the cage, but phenomenal in the cage. And we got PayPal in the room. I think Yanez has better pre-UFC competition, but Costa has fought better opponents in the UFC. Yeah, we're going to get into the strength of schedule right now because I actually agree 100% with what PayPal just said there. And we got Dan Goldstein. All we can hope for is that the one that gets dropped has pleasant dreams. Yeah. And then they'll just wake up looking at the lights and hoping that, you know, they got to see their favorite dog that died or whatever. And then they'll realize, oh, man, you just got knocked out. Everything's going to be all right. Got Bryce D, Weezy. Bryce D, thank you for hanging out. Let's get into the strength of schedule numbers here. And the one thing that really kind of surprised me here is that neither one of these guys has what I would call a signature win yet in the UFC. The average opponent of Adrien Yanez has 0.33 wins and 0.67 losses. So he's not fighting terribly experienced guys here. One total fight. While for Costa, it's a little more experienced, but they got losing records at 1 win and 2.33 losses for 3.33 total fights and a 0.43 ratio. So neither one of these guys has fought good competition. Both of their wins are not great in the sense of the ratio or the total fights, as we have a 0.5 win to loss ratio for both of them. 1 fight for Yanez, 1.5 fight for Costa. The average opponent of Adrien Yanez that he beats, 0.33 wins, 0.67 losses. And for Costa, it's 0.5 wins and 1 loss. So yeah, and you know, so at least here we see the total fights. If we look at the overall strength of schedule, that Costa, while the ratio isn't quite as good, they're both bad, at least he's fighting the more experienced competition. Going back to what PayPal said about, you know, that he thought that Costa had fought better competition in the UFC. But if we go back to the pre-UFC, you'll see that the names on Costa's resume are not impressive, while Adrien Yanez was fighting some guys that were UFC level outside of the UFC. So, and then the losses, Randy Costa's only loss came to Brandon Davis, who has a 3-5 record in the UFC. So when we strip out the Costa fight, we see that Brandon Davis's record was 2-5, 2 wins, 5 losses, 7 fights for a ratio of 0.4. And if we look at the last 5 here, Costa in the UFC has knockout wins over Journey Newson and Boston Salmon, and he has a loss by sub to Brandon Davis. And my God, that was such a great fight. If you guys have not seen the Brandon Davis-Costa fight, it's such a treat. Put that one on, and it is a banger that lasts about 7 minutes. Both of them get each other in trouble a couple of times. It's back and forth. It's an all-out war, and there's a ton of volume in it. Great fight. Razor Rob Fuller, he got a win by knockout by ground and pound, and a win over Chris Thorne by KO. While for Yanez, we've got a win over Gustavo Lopez, a win over Victor Rodriguez, and a win over Brady Huang, a win by split decision over Kyle Estrada, and a win by knockout over Michael Rodriguez. But let's look at Yanez here on his Tapology profile and look at his pre-UFC action. So we saw those fights. We see the fight to Estrada here in LFA. He beat Michael Rodriguez, who was 9-6 going into that fight by first round knockout. He beat Warren Stewart in Fury FC 29, 146 of the second round by strikes. Warren Stewart was 11-28 going into that fight. Prior to that, lost to Miles Johns by split decision at LFA 55. So, and then we see another loss to Domingo Pilardi back in 2017 at LFA 7 by split decision. So his last two losses were by split decision, and most of these wins are first round knockout wins. But he's got an armbar submission in the third round here. He's got a triangle choke submission here in the first. He's got a retirement win at the end of the first round as he really put it on Jake Snyder. And then, prior to that, we've got the amateur competition. So yeah, we see some decent names here. Pilardi pre-UFC, Miles Johns pre-UFC, Trent Moe 6-3, Colin Wright 5-2, Ryan Hollis 10-8. And then the first loss of his career was to Levi Moles, and Levi Moles took him down several times and won that fight with ground and pound, won that one with a unanimous decision win. And that's what I would say is that it looks like the best way to beat Adrien Yanez is to take him down, to avoid the submissions that he's going to throw up off his back, because his takedown defense pre-UFC was not good at all. He was getting taken down a lot. So now that Costa is training at Sanford MMA, the one wrinkle that I don't think we're going to see out of him, but we could see, is maybe him going to his wrestling like he did in the Razor Rob Fuller fight, where he took him down and finished him out with ground and pound. And we could potentially see Randy Costa go to his wrestling. It would be an interesting way for him to switch things up and do something that Yanez didn't expect. But both of these guys are such dynamic strikers. I am expecting that this fight finishes inside the distance. Let's refresh my best fight odds page here and see what we've got in terms of props for this fight, and see if we can pick out anything that kind of tickles our fancy, if you will, here. So let's see. No, man, they've only got one prop for this fight. What a bummer. That's what happens when you get way ahead of the game like I have gotten here, and I'm already putting out content on Monday, is that sometimes the books haven't caught up to us and put out these lines. So we've got an over 1.5 here set at -145. The under 1.5 juice just a little bit to +115, +120. So you're getting plus money that this thing lasts less than 7.5 minutes, which is interesting because Randy Costa's never been past 7.5 minutes in his entire career. So you got to like the plus money to the under 1.5 here, but I think a potential parlay piece or a potential max bet situation here is if you could get the fight doesn't go to decision here at -250 or better, I would say that is a great spot to hammer with whatever a big bet is for you, because like we say, never past 7.5 minutes for Randy Costa. Both of these guys are dynamite strikers. And since neither one of these guys seems to be committed to offensive wrestling, and both of these guys have got so much power in their hands and their feet, the chances that this fight, that somebody gets knocked out before 15 minutes is up, is very high in my opinion. I think that that's a great spot. The only thing that worries me about that is that Adrien Yanez has never been finished. So we do see that those 3 professional losses for Adrien Yanez, that he's never been subbed and he's never been knocked out. So in the 4 combined losses between Yanez and Costa, only one of them has finished inside the distance. And that's a little bit troubling if you're betting the under. However, if you just look at, sometimes the easiest way to cash an under bet is to have a killer be killed fighter like Randy Costa in the cage, because he has the ability to draw that brawl out of his opponent. And because neither one of these guys seems to be the type to try to get takedowns and to lay and pray and to just win rounds instead of win fights, I think that even though only 25% of these guys' combined losses have finished inside the distance, that Randy Costa is such a killer be killed fighter that you might get some pretty decent value on this fight not going to decision, or maybe you want to bet the fight doesn't start round 3 or something like that, and get a little bit better odds than you deserve because Yanez has never been finished. Because if he does get finished, it'll probably be Randy Costa that's the first one to finish him, because Costa is that powerful, and I could see either one of these guys getting dropped or finished early in this fight because they're both such dynamite strikers. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. Let's see here. We got Dan. Costa fights inside a round in all wins. Yanez has decisions and pop on his shots in the third too. Yes, he does. Jack Attack saying, I remember the sub, but don't remember the fight before that. I remember Davis looking massive at bantamweight. Yeah, that's the thing. They were talking about in that fight how huge Brandon Davis did look. And I know that Brandon Davis, I think, has had a couple fights at 145 as well. And I think that's one that he actually had a full camp for, was able to cut down. And he did look bigger than Costa, which is strange because all the other fights I've seen Costa in, he's just a huge bantamweight. So it was weird to see somebody looking even bigger than Costa. And that was Brandon Davis. And Brandon Davis is very tough because Costa landed several good shots on him, but he kept coming forward, and then he eventually got that sub. DFS by the number is saying, waiting for that fight doesn't go to decision prop, hoping it's minus 250 or better for sure. Yeah, both you and I, Brady, will be refreshing the page to find that bet because it's going to be one of my favorites of the week. We got Dave Crackk saying, Holland versus Dawkins, October. Oh, that's going to be so much fun. We got the younger Dawkins coming through to fight Kevin Holland, and boy, both of those guys really haven't been in any boring fights yet, so I'm looking forward to that one. We got my man Chris in the room. He's saying he likes Yanez here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like Yanez. Yanez is very hot right now. There's a lot of people on the Yanez bandwagon, and I can see why, but let's hold up because neither one of these guys, in my opinion, has a signature win yet. I mean, even the signature fights that Yanez had before the UFC, those losses came to, I mean, they were split decision losses. So, I mean, obviously nobody's going out there and killing Yanez. But Miles Johnson, Domingo Pilardi, very good losses. But we haven't found the signature win yet. It can't be Brady Huang. We can't call Brady Huang or Kyle Estrada right now signature wins if you're going to be a UFC fighter who's, being hyped and people are saying that he deserves to be in the top 15. He's going to have a better win than the guys that are already on his resume. And Randy Costa will be a nice step in that direction for Adrien Yanez and vice versa. Whoever wins this fight is going to be taking the next step. Dan Goldstein saying, I cannot wait for the props to open up on this one. Yeah, dude, they got to get out, and it can't be soon enough because I am looking to dive on them. We got PayPal saying 55% striking defense against lesser competition for Yanez, though. No one is immune to being finished. Guys eating clean shots on the chin, head kicks. Oh, of course. Yeah, and that's the thing about Costa. I mean, those head kicks, they come from both legs. And when you see a guy head kick as much as Costa, and he has as many highlight reel knockouts with that head kick, you don't also expect to see them have power in both hands. But man, Randy Costa has power in both hands. And the thing is, the reason he has that power is because he throws everything into every strike, which is why we saw him gas out against Brandon Davis and get finished. And, I don't see it being any different in this fight. Miles Johns is a good boxer. Domingo Pilardi, really more of a grappler. But this is going to be the most dynamic striker that he's ever seen. And this is going to be a very difficult test. It's showing PayPal telling us that, oh, wait, sorry, I missed a comment here. PayPal saying, Davis fight concerns me for Costa, though. Hoping he was gassed and not hurt. Not sure which is worse. Yeah, and they were talking about his leg looking a little bit wonky in that fight. I know Joe Rogan was saying that he thought maybe, and he did get one of those kicks right behind the knee that kind of gave Jimmy Crute drop foot, gave Michael Chandler drop foot. And, you know, he looked a little bit weird on his legs in that fight, that I didn't really see that kind of awkward movement in his next fight against Journey Newsom. And then PayPal is saying Yanez is minus 210 on Bovada, money coming in. If you like Costa, wait on it. Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Yanez has looked so fucking good in all of his UFC fights thus far that, you know, the hype is real and hype drives the line. So I would expect that if you want Yanez on your team this week, you probably get your money in now. And if you're looking to be on Team Costa, you can wait. You don't have to rush to the window. You can kind of wait for that line to top out, and maybe you can get the best value for it. Dave's saying, I've got Yanez after I watched Stat Diggers, minus 177. Yeah, man, and there's a lot of people. Headley one was saying it earlier in the chat that he could easily see this line going to minus 225, minus 250, and you'll be really happy you got it minus 177 if that's the case. And OKK saying, watching Weezy makes me sweat my bets. He's too logical. Makes me question myself. Yeah, man. Well, you know, the thing is about this show and about how I run these breakdowns is I don't want you guys really to be too concerned with what my opinion is on who's going to win the fight. What I prefer that you watch for is just the way that I break down the fights. I try to provide as much information about both fighters, and you should be less concerned with my opinion than you should be with the data that I'm bringing and the reasoning why that data matters to this particular matchup. So that's why I don't really track my bets yet, because I'm still kind of working with all the data. And like you guys, I'm still trying to improve. I'm still trying to get better. I'm still trying to make better bets every week. And I'm using the data that I'm compiling, or that I've been compiling over the last year, in order to try to formulate some kind of a decision-making model going forward, to where maybe you guys really will care about my opinion about who wins the fight. But in the meantime, let's just talk about all the data that we do have available, so that when we do look at these fights, we can look at them objectively and kind of use that data in order to find value in some of these lines. That's why I hope, man, you guys are watching the show. And you know, I totally get what you're saying, man. You know, I'm just saying, you know, what my philosophy is about how I break these fights down. So, yeah, man, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I want to get done. We got about 8 minutes until my man Clint starts the Die Hard MMA podcast. It's my second favorite show of the week, compared to Stat Diggers, which of course is my favorite. But yeah, I'm gonna sign off here. But yeah, man, I am gonna be not really even putting out a pick. I just think that I want to tell you guys that the data is telling me, because we got Randy Costa in this fight, that this is a great spot for the fight doesn't go to decision. We do have to be worried about the fact that Yanez has never been finished, but PayPal brought up a really good point, that the way that Randy Costa strikes, just because he hasn't been finished, it doesn't mean if you get kicked in the face, you know, by one of those dynamic kicks, you're going to sleep no matter what. So this is going to be a great fight. I'm expecting violence here. I thank you guys all for hanging out with me tonight. I'm going to go and watch Clint right now. So please leave a like on your way out if you found this to be useful. Check me out on Twitter at MMA Weezy. Please like and subscribe if you find this stuff useful. I will check you out next time on Balls Deep Breakdowns. I'm going to be doing a couple more tomorrow. And I asked on Twitter for which ones you guys wanted to see. There was a lot of requests for Daukaus Abdurakhimov. I'll put that one off until next week, because we're not seeing that until next week. There was a lot of requests for Minner, the Minner fight and the Soriano-Allen fight. So I think those are the next two that I'm going to be doing, is Puna against Brendan Allen. And then we're going to also do the Elkins-Minner fight. And then if you guys have got any other suggestions for me, let me know. Oh, and okay, so let's... Grateful Dude saying, thanks again for going deep on the stats. It's much appreciated. I appreciate you for hanging out with me. Okay, saying pick a winner, please. Okay. I'm going to pick, oh, God. The winner is going to be the guys who are taking their fight doesn't go to decision back to the window to cash it. That's who's going to be winning this fight. I don't want to commit to either side right here. But, you know, I mean, I guess I would lean Yanez. I think the pre-UFC competition being better, you know, is a little bit for me to be happy about and think that he could probably win this fight. But, you know, the bet that I would encourage you guys to make is the fight doesn't go to decision. Thanks, Dan, for hanging out. I appreciate you hanging out with me. So God bless all you guys. I will catch you on the next Baldy Breakdown tomorrow. And I'm going to go watch the Die Hard MMA podcast. Guys, have a great night.